He kissed her with so much hunger, so much need. Dae-jung's hand slid into Amara's hair, fingers tangling in her braids as he pulled her closer. His lips crashed against hers, not gentle, not tentative, but consuming, like he'd been starving for this moment, and finally, he could taste what he'd been craving. Arrow, oh my God, Amara gasped against his mouth, and he took the invitation, deepening the kiss until her knees went weak. His other hand gripped her waist, pulling her flush against him, and she could feel every hard line of his body through the thin fabric of her blouse. "Say my name," he commanded, his lips moving to her jaw, her neck, that spot behind her ear that made her entire body ignite. "Dae-jung," she breathed, her fingers clutching his shoulders like he was the only thing keeping her anchored to earth. "Again." "Dae-jung." He backed her against the desk, papers scattering to the floor. His hands found her thighs, lifting her onto the cool glass surface. She should stop this. She should push him away. But God, she'd wanted this for so long, dreamed about it so many nights that reality felt like the dream now. How did they get here? How did Amara Chen, pastor's daughter, church youth leader, the girl who'd never even been kissed properly, end up with Seoul's most powerful COO between her legs, his mouth doing things that should be illegal? Let me take you back. Because this moment didn't happen by accident. This was the culmination of 21 years of suffocation, finally exploding into rebellion. Amara had lived her entire life in a cage made of scripture and expectations. Houston's Third Baptist Church wasn't just where her family attended, it was their entire world. Her father was senior pastor, her mother ran women's ministries. And Amara? She was their perfect project. The daughter who proved their parenting worked. Modest dresses that fell below the knee. No dating until marriage. No secular music. No dancing. No anything that might lead her astray from righteousness. For 21 years, Amara walked that narrow path without complaint, without question, without ever admitting that she was dying inside. College at Texas A&M was supposed to be more of the same: live at home, commute to campus, study international finance, get a respectable job, marry a nice church boy, have babies, repeat the cycle. But then her roommate Jess introduced her to Korean dramas during finals week, and something cracked open inside Amara's chest. She watched one episode, then another. Then she was staying up until 3 a.m, headphones plugged in so her parents wouldn't hear, watching love stories that made her ache for something she couldn't name. These weren't just romance stories. They were windows into a world where women wanted things, chose things, lived loudly and unapologetically. Amara became obsessed. She downloaded language apps, taught herself Hangul between classes, started following Korean music and food and culture with the intensity of someone who'd found the thing they'd been missing their whole life. When she saw the posting for Tech Vision Korea's international intern program, something clicked into place. This was her chance, her escape hatch, her one opportunity to discover who Amara Chen was when nobody was watching. She applied without telling her parents. When the acceptance email came, she stared at it for 3 days before finding the courage to break the news. Her father called it rebellion. Her mother cried and quoted scripture about honoring your parents. They told her she was throwing away her values, her future, her soul. They said she'd regret it, that she'd come running home within a month. But for the first time in her life, Amara said no, and she meant it. Seoul hit her like a fever dream. The moment she stepped off that plane at Incheon, everything felt different. The air, the energy, the possibility crackling around her like electricity. She took the subway to her tiny studio in Mapo, unpacked her single suitcase, and sobbed into her pillow. Grief and joy tangled together, indistinguishable. Tech Vision Korea's headquarters was a 40-story monument to innovation in the heart of Gangnam. Glass and steel reaching toward the sky, representing everything Amara had never been allowed to reach for. On her first day, she wore a conservative black dress and heels that pinched, trying to look professional and confident even though she felt like a fraud. The elevator ride to the 38th floor felt like ascending to another dimension. Orientation was already underway when she arrived. 20 interns from 12 countries, all looking nervous and excited. But Amara's attention laser-focused on the two men standing at the front of the room. Dae-young Kim was introduced first, Chief Operating Officer, 29 years old. He looked like he'd been carved from stone in expensive tailoring, sharp features, dark hair swept back, eyes that seemed to catalog every weakness, every desire, every secret. When those eyes landed on Amara, her breath caught. Something passed between them, recognition without ever having met. "Welcome to Tech Vision," Dae-jung said, his voice like whiskey, smooth with just enough burn. "We expect excellence here. We expect innovation. We expect you to push boundaries and challenge conventions. If you're not ready for that, leave now." Nobody moved. The man beside him laughed, warm and disarming. "What he means is, welcome. We're glad you're here. I'm Ji-hoon Park, Chief Strategy Officer, and unlike my colleague, I promise we don't bite." Ji-hoon was everything Dae-jung wasn't. Where Dae-jung was intensity and sharp edges, Ji-hoon was warmth and easy charm. Dimples when he smiled, eyes that crinkled with genuine humor. The kind of face that made you feel safe immediately. Amara felt something dangerous unfurl in her chest. Want. Real, terrifying, consuming want. The first 2 weeks nearly broke her. 12-hour days. Projects in Korean she barely understood. Presentations in English she second-guessed, trying desperately to prove she deserved to be there, that she was more than just the diversity hire, that she belonged. She started staying late. The office would empty around 7 or 8, and Amara would remain until 10 or 11, finishing work, reviewing translations, preparing for the next day. It became her routine. Work until exhaustion, go home, watch one episode of whatever drama she was binging, collapse, repeat. It was a Wednesday evening, 3 weeks into her internship, when everything changed. Most of the office had cleared out for a late lunch meeting. Amara stayed behind, finishing a financial analysis due the next morning. She needed a break. Her eyes hurt from spreadsheets, her brain felt like mush. Just 15 minutes, just one episode. She pulled up her laptop, found her current drama, plugged in her headphones. The episode opened with an intense scene. The male lead pressing the female lead against a wall, hand tangled in her hair, kissing her with the kind of desperate passion Amara had only ever imagined. She leaned closer to the screen, completely absorbed. Her mind replaced the actors' faces. Suddenly, it was Dae-jung pressing her against that wall. Ji-hoon's hands sliding around her waist, both of them wanting her with that same fierce intensity. Amara's hand drifted to her collar, feeling overheated. She didn't notice the footsteps approaching, didn't sense anyone behind her until Dae-jung's voice cut through her fantasy like a knife. Interesting choice for a lunch break. Amara's entire body went rigid. She spun so violently in her chair that her laptop tilted sideways, her headphones ripped from the jack, and suddenly the sound, heavy breathing, moans, the unmistakable soundtrack of passion, blasted through the empty office at maximum volume. "No, no, no, no!" Amara lunged for the laptop, fingers fumbling over keys, making it worse instead of better. The sounds seemed to get louder. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. Another person appeared in a doorway, eyes wide. Amara finally managed to slam the laptop shut, but the damage was done. Her face burned so hot she thought she might actually combust. Her dark skin couldn't hide the flush creeping up her neck, flooding her cheeks. She couldn't look at Dae-jung. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't form a single coherent thought beyond, "I'm getting fired, and I want to die." "Miss Chen." His voice was impossibly calm. Too calm. Like he was commenting on the weather instead of having just caught her watching softcore porn in the middle of the office. "My office. 5 minutes." He walked away, leaving Amara trembling in her chair, absolutely certain her career had just ended before it really began. "Wait. Before we continue, are you really about to scroll away right when things are getting intense? Hit that like button. If Amara's bold choice has you shook, and subscribe, because trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. You've come this far. Don't miss how this ends. Now, back to the story. Those 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. Amara tried to compose herself, tried to rehearse an apology that didn't sound pathetic, tried to remember how to form sentences. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. When she finally knocked on Dae-jung's door, she felt like she might throw up. "Come in." His office was dimming with the late afternoon light, Seoul's skyline beginning to sparkle through the massive windows. Dae-jung stood facing the city, hands in his pockets, his silhouette dark and imposing. "Mr. Kim, I am so incredibly sorry. Do you watch those often?" He turned slowly, his face unreadable. Amara blinked. "What?" "The dramas. Do you watch them often during work hours?" "No, I mean, sometimes during breaks, always with headphones. I wasn't thinking. What do you like about them?" He moved toward her, each step deliberate. "I don't understand what this has to do with humor me." He was closer now. Too close. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and intoxicating. "What draws you to those scenes?" Amara's throat went dry. "I guess, the passion, the intensity, the way they want each other without apology." "Without apology," Dae-jung repeated, something flickering in his eyes. "That scene I saw, the way he touched her, is that what you think about?" Her heart hammered. "Mr. Kim, when you're alone at night, watching those scenes, do you imagine yourself there?" His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "Do you imagine me?" The question hung between them like a lit match near gasoline. Every instinct screamed at Amara to lie, to deny, to run. But his eyes held her captive, and she was so tired of lying. "Yes," she whispered. Something fierce flashed across Dae-jung's face. Victory, hunger, relief. "Go home, Amara. Think carefully about what you want. If you come back here tonight at 9 o'clock, I'll know your answer. If you don't show up, we'll never speak of this again. Your job is completely safe either way, but if you do come back—" He paused, his eyes burning into hers. "There's no going back from that choice." "What choice? What are you asking me?" He smiled, slow and devastating. "Whether you want to keep watching dreams or whether you want to start living them." Amara went home. She paced her tiny apartment like a caged animal. She picked up her phone to call her best friend back in Houston, then put it down. What would she even say? She tried to pray, actually got on her knees beside her bed like she used to as a child, but the words felt hollow. What did she want? She wanted to feel alive. She wanted to stop being afraid. She wanted to know what it felt like when someone touched her the way men touched women in those dramas, like they were starving and she was a feast. At 8:30, she was on the subway heading back to Gangnam. At 8:50, she was in the elevator ascending to the 38th floor. At 9 o'clock exactly, she was standing outside Dae-jung's office, her hand raised to knock. The door opened before her knuckles touched wood. Dae-jung had changed from his suit into dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up. He looked younger like this, less intimidating but somehow more dangerous. "You came," he said simply. "I don't know why," Amara whispered. "Yes, you do." He stepped aside. "Come in." The office felt different at night, intimate, isolated, like they were the only two people left in the world. The city glittered below them, oblivious to what was about to happen. "I need you to be completely honest with me," Dae-jung said, moving toward her slowly. "Do you think about me?" "Yes." "When you watch those dramas, do you imagine me touching you?" "Yes." "Do you want me to touch you the way that man touched that woman today?" Amara's breath came in short gasps. "Yes." "Then here's what's going to happen." Dae-jung pulled out his phone, set a timer for 2 minutes, and placed it on his desk. "I'm going to sit here. You're going to stand there. If you leave before the timer goes off, we forget this conversation happened. If you stay, I'm going to assume you want exactly what I want. 2 minutes, Amara. Choose." He sat in his chair, leaning back, watching her with those dark, penetrating eyes. The timer started counting down. 1:58, 1:57, 1:56. Amara watched the numbers fall, every second felt like an eternity. She should leave. This was her boss. This was inappropriate. This was everything she'd been taught to avoid: temptation, desire, giving in to the flesh. 1:30. But when had following the rules ever made her happy? When had being good ever made her feel this alive? 1 o'clock. She thought about her parents, about church, about all the time she'd swallowed her wants and needs to be their perfect daughter. 0:30. She thought about the girl who got on that plane to Seoul. What had she been searching for if not exactly this, the freedom to want something for herself? 0:15. She thought about Dae-jung's hands, his lips, the way he looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. 0:05, 0:04, 0:03, 0:02, 0:01. The alarm went off. Amara didn't move. Dae-jung stood slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. Do you want this? Yes. Say it again. I want this. I want you. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hand cupping her face with surprising gentleness. Last chance, Amara. After I kiss you, there's no going back. Then kiss me already. His lips met hers, and the world ignited. Amara had never been kissed, not really. A awkward peck at a youth group event when she was 16 didn't count. This was kissing. This was drowning and flying simultaneously. Dae-jung's lips were firm but skilled, coaxing her mouth open, teaching her the rhythm, taking and giving in equal measure. She followed his lead, her hands finding his shoulders, his neck, his hair. He tasted like coffee and mint and possibility. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. Tell me what you want, he commanded. I want you to touch me. His hands slid down her sides, gripping her waist, and in one smooth motion, he lifted her onto his desk. Papers scattered, a lamp tilted. Amara didn't care. Dae-jung stood between her legs, one hand tangled in her braids, the other tracing the curve of her neck. He kissed her jaw, her throat, that sensitive spot behind her ear that made her gasp. You have no idea how long I've wanted this, he murmured against her skin. Since the moment you walked into orientation, I knew I had to have you. His fingers found the buttons of her blouse. Tell me to stop and I will. Don't stop. He unbuttoned her blouse slowly, his eyes drinking in every inch of revealed skin. When he pushed the fabric off her shoulders, Amara shivered, not from cold but from the intensity of his gaze. Perfect, he breathed. His lips traced her collarbone, down to the swell of her breasts. Amara arched into him, her hands gripping his shoulders, soft sounds escaping her throat that she'd never made before. Say my name, Dae-jung commanded. Dae-jung. Louder. Dae-jung. He swept the desk clear with one arm, laptop, papers, everything crashing to the floor, and gently laid her back. The cool wood against her heated skin made her entire body tremble. Dae-jung stood over her, his white shirt now partially unbuttoned, his hair messy from her hands, looking like every fantasy she'd ever had come to life. You're mine now, he said, his voice rough with desire. Do you understand? Mine. Yes. He leaned down, his body covering hers, and they moved together like they'd choreographed this dance in some other lifetime. Slow at first, learning each other's rhythms, then faster, more desperate, more consuming. The door opened. Dae-jung, I need those reports for... Ji-hoon Park stood frozen in the doorway, his eyes going wide as he took in the scene. Amara half undressed on the desk, Dae-jung hovering over her, both of them looking thoroughly caught. For 3 seconds, nobody moved, nobody breathed. Then Ji-hoon's expression shifted from shock to something else, something hungry. Well, he said slowly, closing the door behind him with a decisive click. This is unexpected. Amara scrambled to sit up, fumbling with her blouse, her face burning with a mortification so complete she thought she might actually die right there on Dae-jung's desk. Ji-hoon? Dae-jung started, his voice tight. Don't... Ji-hoon held up a hand, but he wasn't looking at Dae-jung. His eyes were fixed on Amara, dark and intense in a way she'd never seen before. How long? Tonight, Daejong said. This is the first time. Is it? Jihoon moved further into the room, and Amara noticed he locked the door behind him. Because I've watched you look at her for 3 weeks like you wanted to devour her, and I've watched her look at you the same way. Amara's hands stilled on her buttons. I don't understand what's happening right now. Don't you? Jihoon came closer, his usual easy charm replaced by something rawer. Do you remember that company dinner 2 weeks ago, when we talked for 3 hours? She nodded, unable to speak. I wanted you then. Hell, I wanted you the moment I saw you in orientation. But Daejong saw you first. He always sees opportunities first. Jihoon's jaw tightened. So I stepped back. I've been stepping back for 20 years. What are you saying? Amara whispered. Daejong's hand found hers on the desk. Jihoon and I have been friends since we were 9 years old. We've shared everything. Schools, dreams, this company. We've never let anything come between us. Until her, Jihoon finished, his eyes still on Amara. Tell me something honestly. When you imagine these scenarios in your head, is it always just him? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Amara's throat closed. She should lie. Should deny. But she was so tired of lying. No, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Sometimes it's both of you. The confession seemed to suck all the oxygen from the room. Jihoon exhaled slowly. Daejong, we need to talk. Alone. No. Amara surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. If you're going to talk about me, I'm staying. I'm not some object you two negotiate over. Both men looked at her, and she saw surprise flicker across their faces. Good. Let them be surprised. She was tired of being the quiet, obedient girl. You're right, Daejong said softly. This is your choice. It's always your choice. Jihoon pulled up a chair, sitting backwards on it, his arms crossed over the back. Okay, cards on the table. I want you, Amara. I've wanted you since that first day, but you're with Daejong now and I respect that, so I'll step back. Again. What if she didn't have to choose? Daejong said quietly. Amara's head snapped toward him. What? What if there was another option? Daejong continued, his eyes moving between her and Jihoon. We both want her. She wants both of us. Why does anyone have to lose? That's insane, Amara breathed. Is it? Daejong challenged. You left Houston because you were tired of living by rules that didn't fit you. You came to Seoul to discover who you really are, so who says you have to follow conventional relationship rules either? Jihoon was watching her carefully. What do you want, Amara? Not what you think you should want, not what makes sense. What do you actually want? She looked between them, Daejong with his intensity and fierce possession, Jihoon with his warmth and patient desire. 2 men who made her feel things she'd never felt before. 2 men who wanted her in ways nobody ever had. I want both of you, she whispered. God help me, I want both of you. Jihoon stood slowly. Then you can have both of us. What followed was a negotiation unlike anything Amara had ever experienced. They set boundaries, rules. This wouldn't be public. The office couldn't know, not yet. They would protect Amara's reputation and career above everything. They would communicate constantly, honestly, even when it was uncomfortable. And they would see where this unconventional arrangement took them. Are you sure about this? Jihoon asked Amara softly. This isn't a small decision. I've never been sure of anything in my life, she admitted. But I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of following rules that make me miserable. So yes, I'm sure. Daejong stood, pulling her gently off the desk. Then let's start over. Properly this time. The first real night together happened the following Saturday at Daejong's penthouse. Amara wore a dress Jihoon had bought her, deep burgundy silk that made her skin glow. Her hands shook as she knocked on the door. Daejong answered, looking devastating in all black. You look incredible. Jihoon appeared behind him, his smile warm and reassuring. Come in. We've been waiting. The apartment was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, the city sprawling below like a sea of lights. But Amara only had eyes for the two men watching her like she was the only thing that mattered. "Are you nervous?" Ji-hoon asked gently. "Terrified," she admitted. "We can stop any time," Dae-jung assured her. "This only happens at your pace." "I want this." Her voice was steadier now. "I want both of you." They approached her slowly, Dae-jung on her left, Ji-hoon on her right, both touching her carefully, reverently, hands on her arms, her waist, her face. "You're so beautiful," Ji-hoon murmured, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. Dae-jung tilted her face toward his, claiming her mouth in a deep kiss. Behind her, Ji-hoon's lips found her neck, making her gasp against Dae-jung's mouth. They guided her to the bedroom, working in perfect harmony like they'd choreographed this. 20 years of friendship creating an intuitive understanding of each other's movements. They explored her together, 4 hands learning every curve. They whispered praise in Korean and English, telling her she was perfect, beautiful theirs. "Whose are you?" Dae-jung asked, his voice rough. "Yours," Amara gasped. "Both of us?" Ji-hoon questioned softly. "Yes, both of you." "Then say our names," Dae-jung commanded. "Let everyone know." What happened next was overwhelming. Sensation upon sensation, pleasure building until Amara thought she might break apart. They moved together like dancers, each knowing exactly where to touch, how to kiss, when to push her higher. "Dae-jung!" she cried out. "Louder!" he demanded. "Dae-jung! Ji-hoon! Oh God!" They brought her to the edge again and again, only to pull back, making it last. When the final crescendo came, all 3 of them tumbled over together, tangled in sheets and limbs and possibilities. Afterward, they lay together, Amara between them, both men holding her close. "Scream our names," Dae-jung murmured against her hair, "because we're all yours." "Just like you're all ours," Ji-hoon added, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Amara closed her eyes, overwhelmed. This wasn't what she'd imagined leaving Houston. This was stranger and more complicated and more perfect than any fantasy. The months that followed weren't easy. They navigated jealousy and miscommunication, the constant fear of exposure. But Amara's work continued to excel. She proved herself beyond any relationship. When her internship ended, they offered her a full-time position. She was too talented to let go. Her parents eventually found out she was seeing someone in Korea. She didn't tell them the full truth. She wasn't ready for that. But she stopped apologizing for her choices. One night, 6 months in, the 3 of them sat on Dae-jung's balcony overlooking the city. "I never thought my life would look like this," Amara said softly. "Are you happy?" Ji-hoon asked, threading his fingers through hers. "Terrifyingly happy." "Good," Dae-jung said, his arm around her shoulders. "Because we're never letting you go." Amara laughed, leaning into them both. She looked out at Seoul, this city of contradictions where ancient temples sat beside skyscrapers, where tradition and innovation danced together constantly. She'd come here running from one life and found another she never expected. She'd arrived a sheltered girl from Houston. She was becoming a woman who knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to claim it. Want to see more unconventional love stories that challenge everything you thought you knew about relationships? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment telling me what you thought about Amara's journey. Would you have made the same choice? And if you're hungry for more stories that push boundaries and make you question the rules, check out the playlist. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. Remember, sometimes the best love stories are the ones that don't fit in anyone's box but yours. And that's Amara's story. From Houston pastor's daughter to a woman living unapologetically in Seoul with 2 men who love her without conditions. So now I want to hear from you. Would you have made the same choice? Would you have stayed after that timer went off or walked away? Drop your answer in the comments below. And tell me, what was your favorite part of this story? Was it the intense office confrontation, that 2-minute timer that had us all holding our breath, Or maybe Amara standing up to the corporate gossip and choosing herself. If you're here for more stories like this, stories that break rules, challenge conventions, and celebrate unconventional love, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got bold romance stories coming every single week that you won't want to miss. Comment below, hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then, remember, sometimes the best love stories are the ones that don't fit in anyone's box but yours. Stop.